Part 17. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 161. It's been a day since the exercise, and there are only a few days until we go to the town hall. We can leave the betting aside for now, but other things need to be packed first. Sugu was flipping through a book. He was worrying about which ones to throw away and which ones to take away. At this time, he saw York City packing clothes next to him and asked, "You actually chased someone to apologize?" They were talking about Xietao, who originally left with a blushing face after the exercise. He originally wanted to forget it, but York City insisted on an apology and even chased him into the classroom. "Of course I have to apologize if I made a mistake. I'm so strong and it's natural for me to be transferred to the town hall." But he doesn't apologize. Of course I want him to apologize. York City added, "You have a good temper. You can do whatever you want. Anyway, if he scolds me, I will kill him. Speaking of which, you are not willing to show off your muscles in the academy because you think we are easy to bully. I always thought that wealth should not be exposed. But now I understand that you need to show off your muscles when necessary." York City nodded, "Yeah. Then it will be up to you to show off your muscles." York City picked up his bangs with his fingers and said, "Please leave it to me." York City said this. She was wiping a pair of boots with a cloth at this time. When she saw the boots, she remembered the sharp kick when she first met the Admiral. She originally thought that she would be put in small shoes, but in the end she left it alone. Although occasionally it is mentioned, but it becomes a joke. At this time, York City was wiping his boots and thinking of the experience of their initial encounter. "My impression of the Admiral has changed a lot. At first I thought my Admiral was just an ordinary Admiral, but later I thought he was a troublesome Admiral. Later, when I returned home, I saw such powerful ship girls as Sister Lexington, which was surprising. I was really shocked at first, thinking that they were secretive people. Think about it, there is indeed a big difference between your own Admiral and other people's Admirals. Many Admirals in the Academy always like to let their ship girls participate in various exercises, hoping that their ship girls will become stronger. Only his Admiral felt it didn't matter. Among the many ship girls belonging to the Admiral, there are powerful ship girls, like Lexington and Saratoga, and there are also weak ship girls, like San Juan and Leipzig. Regardless of whether they are strong or weak, his Admiral maintains the same attitude towards everyone, although there are still some differences. For example, his attitude towards Sister Lexington is different from others. Come to think of it, the Admiral doesn't seem to get angry easily either. He wasn't angry at Bazai because he was lazy. Of course, men don't get angry easily when facing beautiful girls. But it's like the ancient emperors of the old world. I heard that the emperor had many concubines and a big harem. Those emperors would easily be thrown into the cold palace when faced with disobedient concubines. For those bachelors, beautiful girls are of course very important, but for the Admiral who has many beautiful girls, logically speaking, a beautiful girl is not important, but he is still very good to Bazai. If you think about it this way, your Admiral actually has a good personality. I originally thought that the Admiral was a bit timid, he didn't get angry easily, and he never even quarreled with others. On that day, I was suddenly scolded for no reason, and later the Admiral stood up for me. That was the first time I had seen the Admiral speak harshly to someone. It turned out that he was also angry. Later, I heard him talk for a long time. Although I still felt a little timid, the Admiral who dared to take action for his ship girl was very good. Anyway, no matter how you think about it, this kind of Admiral is actually quite good. York City cleaned her leather boots and stuffed them into a bag. She picked up a pair of high heels and said to Sugu, "Do you want to take these with you?" She remembered that she bought high-heeled shoes when she was an intern at the town guard mansion. She originally had a fishtail skirt that exposed her back, which she wore to attend a dinner invited by a local. The fishtail skirt had to be made to order. In fact, the dress was originally from the West Virginia, the secretary ship of the admiral named Chen Nan. It was later given to me. I remember that the waistband of the pants fell apart when I wore it. It was really embarrassing at that time. Big. Whatever. York City was angry with the high-heeled shoes. The admiral really didn't understand girls' hearts, and he could handle the girls' conversation so casually. Everyone was packing things in the living room, and Xiao Zai was holding a big doll. I don't want the teapot or the teacup. Zai, why are you picking up your doll? I won't take the doll, that is too big. Firefly, I will help you buy new clothes. I don't want those two clothes with holes. After hearing Sugu's words, York City thought of something again. By the way, it seems that my admiral has not taken action against anyone, those wedding ships, whether it is Lexington's sister or Saratoga, Bismarck, or Bizai. Speaking of which, Prince Eugen must also like the admiral, and all he needs is a ring. Sister Akaga does the same, and maybe Leipzig too. The admiral didn't attack anyone. It seemed that his favorite thing to do was to hug Xiao Zai. On New Year's Eve, I saw Fletcher looking at the admiral with a strange look. He handed over clothes, tea, and handkerchiefs, and stood on tiptoe to wipe the corners of the admiral's mouth. Oil stains, like a little daughter-in-law. Could it be said that the admiral took action against Fletcher? Anyway, no matter how you think about it, your admiral is a Lolita. But no matter how you think about it, whether your admiral is a mature woman or a Lolita person, he is still a pretty good admiral. York City stuffed it into the cardboard box. Feeling bored or trying to get closer, York City asked, "Admiral, where did Sister Lexington's super powerful carrier-based aircraft come from?" Before Sugu could speak, Lexington, who was sorting things in her room, walked into the living room carrying a box full of clothes. When she heard York City's words, she hesitated and said, "In exchange for underwear." While Sugu was listening, he didn't expect Lexington to answer seriously. Underwear. York City was confused after hearing this. How could it be possible to exchange such strange things for those legendary carrier-based aircraft? How could I believe that strange reason? I couldn't rule out that Sister Lexington was also teasing her. Although she was a gentle woman, she would occasionally joke. Lexington added, "It's not our underwear, it's the underwear of the deep-sea supply ship." Although the deep-sea supply ship is an enemy, to be honest, she is also a pretty cute little girl. York City was even more confused when he heard this. He actually explained it again. Do you want to believe it or not? The most important thing is that no matter what, it feels unreliable when I think about it. Whether it is a ship girl or a deep-sea ship girl, the supply ship should look like a little girl. Think about the cute little girl being pushed to the ground. Then many adults surrounded the little girl, shouting underwear and underwear while surrounding them, and then took off the little girl's underwear with a smile. At the end, a little girl was left alone with a blush on her face. She was ashamed of having her underwear taken off, so she squeezed her legs tightly together, then showed a pitiful smile. Her hair was messy and her face was flushed. The mean adult waved the underwear in his hand and smiled like a maniac. York City thought about it. The picture was so bad. How much underwear can be exchanged for a legendary carrier aircraft? Several dozens. It's okay if I don't explain it, but it seems to be even more sinful when I explain it. Taking off one or two underwear is considered a bad taste, but taking off so many underwear is really a bad behavior. This feeling makes people shudder just thinking about it. Sugu looked at York City, who had a rich imagination, and was afraid that York City would become more outrageous as he thought about it. So Sugu explained, "Don't think blindly. Although they are underwear, we call those underwear trophies. Just like Yamato Akamai's horn, Fortress Heim's cat-eared headdress, and Shokaku Akawazi Wikaku's scythe. These are all trophies. As long as they are unique, they can be trophies. So the same goes for underwear. Trophy, you can say you defeated a deep-sea supply ship by getting a pair of underwear. As for why you should take off your underwear as a trophy, that's the game mechanism. York City looked at Sugu, who was talking eloquently. She was not a little girl and would not believe everything. At this time I thought, spoils. Whatever you use as a trophy is fine. A headdress, a headband, even taking off the stockings is fine. Take off your underwear? Then it becomes the plot of the book that Beizai often reads. This is really not possible. Sugu didn't think too much, and it was a bit difficult to explain the game's mechanics reasonably, so he explained again. If you think about it, the hair accessories can be obtained without sinking the deep-sea supply ship. You can also get stockings without sinking the deep-sea supply ship, but you can't get private things like underwear without defeating the deep-sea ship girl. So, the more Sugu talked, the more he felt something was wrong, because the people around him looked at him strangely. York City looked around with trembling fingers and said, "So that's what you did? Take off the little girl's underwear." Although she was careless, she was a good girl. At this time, Lexington was looked at by York City. Putting aside, it was really shameful to think about this kind of thing. The most important thing was that it was said in a serious manner. York City looked at Firefly and Zai again. The two little girls blinked their eyes innocently. Zai had never attacked and Firefly had not taken off her underwear. Speaking of the combination of underwear, a battleship is the flagship, paired with two submarines, which are fish, and then there are 3 aircraft carriers, and Lexington and Saratoga are 2 of the 3 aircraft carriers. Games turned into reality, Lexington and Saratoga are the mainstays of panty snatching. York City looked at Saratoga again, but Saratoga didn't care that much. She said, "The Admiral asked us to take off our underwear." The girl easily sold Sugu and helped herself and her sister out of the siege. Suddenly, everyone around looked at Sugu. Sugu looked around and thought, there is really no way to refute Saratoga's words. But he wanted to say that it was just a game and it was none of my business. York City couldn't help but take a few steps away from Sugu. At this moment, he thought to himself that he had thought about a lot of things. He thought he was a good person, but it turned out that he was wrong. The Admiral was really the worst admiral. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 162. York City was sorting his shoes in the living room. Xiao Zai was hesitating about which doll he should take away. Of course, there was no need to hesitate about the Sister Meow doll, and he would definitely take it with him. San Juan had just arrived with only 1 suitcase of luggage. She didn't take out all the luggage, so she didn't need to pack it, so she sat on the chair and looked around with nothing to do. In the incident of exchanging the spoils of the hero machine, he easily sold his admiral. In the latter's angry eyes, Saratoga packed up his clothes and fled to the room. At this time in the room, Saratoga was opening his suitcase. Sweater. Sock. Sleeves. Pajamas. Ah, I can't fit it anymore. Let's reorganize it. The new clothes were folded neatly, so they took up less space. However, the clothes in the box were originally stuffed randomly and in a mess. At this time, Saratoga was ready to organize everything again. Lifting the suitcase and pouring out the contents, what appeared on the top, which was originally at the bottom of the suitcase, was the school uniform from when I was studying, a bloated piece of blue and white striped clothing. After the school uniform comes a dress. That dress was also very familiar. Saratoga remembered that she bought it when she went shopping with her admiral. She also bought a book while shopping, but her sister later discovered it and had it confiscated. The dress had not been worn for a long time. At this time, she picked up the dress and patted the dust. Then she sneered, "You even peeked at me when you were trying on clothes that day." He refolded his school uniform and dress and stuffed them into his suitcase, and finally saw his own wedding dress on the bed. Playing with her wedding dress, Saratoga now remembered the scene when she first accepted her admiral's wedding ring, and then she smiled sweetly. Although she would always sell her admiral easily, according to the girl's character, if she is not familiar with someone or someone she likes, she will not pay attention to it at all. Clothes were folded one by one, and soon half the box was filled. With a creak, the door was suddenly pushed open. Saratoga turned her head and found that the person pushing the door was her sister. Lexington walked in and looked around. She walked all the way to the window of the room and opened the curtains. Outside the window, there were no clothes on the wire used to hang clothes. At this time, there was only a wind chime hanging on it. When the wind blew, the wind chime made a tinkling sound. Lexington had already packed up the clothes and toys for Little House and Firefly. Now they each have a small backpack and are responsible for carrying a small box. As for Xiaozai, she has an additional task, carrying a doll, which is a panda doll given to her by San Juan. The matter of the two little girls has been settled, so now I want to check on my sister's progress. I didn't even open the curtains, the room was so stuffy. Gia, you've been working for a long time, but now you haven't packed anything. Lexington noticed his sister's expression and asked, "What's wrong? You look distracted." No, Saratoga shook her head. Lexington said, "I am about to leave. Do you miss this place?" "In fact, I miss it quite a bit, after all, I have lived here for such a long time." The wallpaper, curtains, and furniture were all selected by the Admiral, and when hammering nails I borrowed a claw hammer from the landlord, and later the Admiral even knocked his finger. There is no way to take these things away, but they are full of memories. How could Saratoga be so sentimental? She pouted and said dissatisfiedly, "We must have stayed longer in Gishan before, and we didn't miss seeing you. It's just because of the relationship between brother-in-law, my sister doesn't. I remember it." Lexington smiled and held Saratoga's head, caressing his sister's long golden hair with his face, and said, "The main thing is that you are here, Gaga." Lexington blushed a little and said, "Your brother-in-law has been away for a long time, so he cherishes the memories together." Saratoga curled her lips and thought to herself, your brother-in-law, you can also call him brother-in-law." Saratoga broke away from Lexington's arms, and then said with a sly expression, "Sister and brother-in-law kissed here, of course you have to remember," but she still remembered that her sister was wearing Fletcher's maid uniform with the Admiral. The kiss in the living room. Lexington only recovered from his embarrassment and said generously, "Yes, I kissed your brother-in-law here. Moreover, I still remember watching someone here wearing a maid outfit and a wedding dress, and planning to seduce him. Where's the brother-in-law? Don't talk about that kind of thing after it has passed." "Sister, you are so annoying." He was caught in the act, and now he thinks about his sister standing at the door looking at him, and he feels ashamed just thinking about it. "Why didn't you say it?" It was meant to be. Lexington would also become naughty when he was with his sister. "I won't talk to you anymore." Saratoga stuffed the clothes into the suitcase, turned around and saw that her sister was still smiling beside her, somewhat dissatisfied, sniffing slightly and puffing up her cheeks. "In that case, you can sort it out yourself. I'm going to prepare lunch." Now Saratoga was alone in the room. After being teased a lot, she was in no mood to continue cleaning up. The girl was a little annoyed and wanted to take revenge on her sister. So how to take revenge? It is said that men conquer the world, and women conquer the world by conquering men. If the brother-in-law conquers the sister, he will rely on conquering the brother-in-law to conquer the sister. I recall many times when I was dressed beautifully, and then I saw my brother-in-law and the Admiral's eyes staring at me. After all, how can a man resist an invincible young and beautiful girl like me? It's just a pity that his brother-in-law is a guy who is particularly not good at taking initiative. He is indifferent even though the girl is standing in front of him. So if you want to conquer your brother-in-law, let's make some plans. Suddenly hugged from behind while playing in the wild? Or hold a pillow at night and go for a night attack? It's just that when the girl thought about it, she felt that these plots were very cliché. But if there is any innovative plot. By the way, my sister did so many things for her brother-in-law. Although she gave him a ring and a wedding dress, I remember there was no decent wedding. Since there is no wedding, of course we have to make it up. The brother-in-law is the groom and the sister is the bride. She will be the bridesmaid, Bismarck will be the best man, and Zai and Firefly will be used to pull up the sister's long skirt. Then she stopped her brother-in-law in the middle of the wedding. She and her brother-in-law were alone in the small room, and we only had a short time to do anything. Come on, brother-in-law, my sister is coming over, and it will be strange if she can't find the groom and the bridesmaid. Doing something behind the back of your sister and brother-in-law can be regarded as revenge. Saratoga lay on the bed and shook her legs, suddenly thinking that she had become a bit abnormal and turned into someone like the people in those books that Baizai read. But speaking of it, if my brother-in-law had been more energetic, she would have been a young woman by now, and she wouldn't be the same as she is now. It is said that a ship girl will grow up as her heart matures. Although she has grown up once before, it seems that nothing has changed that time. A girl is still a girl. Unlike Yuxian, it has been transformed and grown, and now it has become very mature. I also want to become mature and become like my older sister. After the new year, there was bright sunshine at noon on January 5th. The sunlight shone into the room through the window and gave the girl's blonde hair a layer of luster. The young girl Saratoga decided that the plan to conquer her brother-in-law must begin. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 163. The Corps of Chuangziu is the naval academy, which specializes in training admirals. However, although it is the Corps of Chuangziu, the streets outside the academy are undoubtedly one level worse than the busiest streets in Chuangziu. The streets are neatly planted with banyan trees. In fact, the new year is almost ready for the holidays, and some admirals will leave here with their wives. But the admirals haven't left school yet, so the shops around the streets are still open. Although compared to ordinary schools, there are undoubtedly fewer people studying here, but this does not prevent the streets outside the college from being filled with shops. There are even several tricycles selling fruit parked on the roadside, and even people sitting on the roadside. There are also many vendors selling various clothing and accessories. As the Corps of Chuangziu, it is a matter of course to have trams here. It's just that it's not the end of get out of class yet, and there are only a few people standing in front of the street stop sign. The middle-aged man with slicked back hair, gold-rimmed glasses, and suits was an employee of a nearby company. At this time, he was anxiously looking at the watch in his hand, as there was still business waiting for him. There was a couple next to the middle-aged man. The young man wearing a large cotton-padded jacket and holding a piece of bread was whispering to a girl with curly hair. After saying a few words, the girl smiled and hit the young man on the shoulder. On the bench next to the stop sign, however, a young woman wearing a hat and a scarf was sitting. There was a large suitcase at her feet. If the admiral from the academy appeared here, he would definitely recognize that this was the strongest person in the academy. Aircraft carrier instructor Akage. Not wearing a kimono or a red Miko costume, Akage pulled up her long black hair and wore a wide brim hat on her head. At this time, she looked like a beautiful urban woman, not the dignified ancient lady. Although he repeatedly tried to cover up his whereabouts, Akage was caught red-handed. Chibolin stood next to Akage. At this time, he looked at the uneasy senior in front of him and said, "Akage, are you just leaving like this? I remember I told you that I would leave my job when the time comes." Although you told me, did you also tell the dean? Akagi said, I've already said it. Hearing Akagi's answer, Zeppelin was speechless for a moment. The words she had prepared could only be swallowed in her stomach. After a long time, she said, then does she agree? So what if I don't agree? She can't do anything to me. According to the contract you originally signed, you can't leave now. You can break the contract, but the contract is not a contract of sale. Speaking of which, Zeppelin, you are the instructor, so you should come with us. Although Akagi resigned, it is like the sun rising every day without anyone else. In fact, the college will not be unable to change without Akagi. However, compared to Akagi, who only holds the position of instructor, Zeppelin himself is still in charge of too many things, and some things have not been handed over yet. Zeppelin said, let's wait for a few days, otherwise the dean will really go crazy. That's right, actually, I communicated with the dean of the academy. Most newcomers to the aircraft carrier are taught by hundred-eyed giants. My task has always been very light. I am only responsible for teaching some aircraft carrier girls who have a basic foundation. In fact, I have told her after that, I will rush back to be an instructor when necessary. After talking for a while, Zeppelin also sat on the bench next to Akagi on the side of the road. Akagi said, I remember that when I first met you, you were arrogant and arrogant. You have changed a lot now. Compared with Akagi sitting on the bench with his hands still placed on his legs dignifiedly, Chi Berlin was undoubtedly much more casual. At this time, she said, the temple is small and the devil is strong, and Chi Chien is the bastard. There are some things that I have never seen before. You never know, I used to be a mercenary, and then I became an instructor in the academy. I thought I was great and was arrogant. In the end, I was just a frog in the well. It's not easy for you to become an instructor in the academy. Don't underestimate yourself. You are the only one who is not qualified to say such things. Akagi and Zeppelin were talking like this, reminiscing about their encounter. Soon after, the tram stopped in front of the platform. When the tram started moving again, Zeppelin was the only one left on the bench. The room was evacuated, and now standing in the corridor outside the room, Fletcher was talking nonchalantly about the price with the landlord. Landlord, don't find fault. We have cleaned the room very well. The walls are what they used to be like now. I used to pay rent for a quarter, but now I don't even have enough room. I don't want you to pay back the rent. But you have to return the deposit to us. Fletcher had always been frugal, a habit picked up as a sister. Although she looks like a doormat in front of her admiral and a nagging sister in front of her sister, she still has the image of a reliable sister in front of outsiders. In the past, when I was working in a maid cafe, I would seriously teach those who were careless. When some people confessed to me, I would refuse them outright, instead of giving a submissive answer and then being pestered. She has done a lot of work along the way, but no one can bully her, and as long as she is for her sister, she dares to challenge anyone, except for one person of course. After some bargaining with the landlord, Fletcher got his own rent deposit. Soon after, she and her sister walked to the street each carrying large and small bags. Sigsby said, it doesn't matter what the deposit is. There won't be any need to spend money when we get to the town hall in the future. You don't understand at all how hard it is to earn money. Beds and quilts, your clothes, and toys all cost money. The Admiral has already said that everything will be prepared for us. Although the Admiral has made preparations for us, we can't just let it go with peace of mind. And we will probably be asked to fry fish every day in the future. We have to sink so many submarines that I don't have time to care about you. The Admiral will definitely not ask you to fry fish now. The Admiral has changed and has become much better. I will tell you quietly. The Admiral said that when more people are found in the future, he will open a maid cafe in the governor's mansion. Sister, you can work inside instead of frying fish. Fletcher raised his head and thought for a moment, opening a maid cafe in the town hall? It's so unseemly. The Admiral likes maid uniforms. It's probably true. The Admiral told me many things. He said he wanted to open a maid cafe in the town hall. He also wanted to open a psychological counseling room. He said he would consider Sister Exeter, but Sister Exeter didn't even have one during the New Year. Come. The Admiral also wants to open a bar, an amusement park, and a store. He said that although it is a small garrison, he hopes everyone can live happily. So, after listening to Sigsby's words, Fletcher asked, "Why does the Admiral tell you so many things?" Sigsby laughed and said, "The Admiral likes little girls." Fletcher was stunned for a moment, thinking to himself, "Am I a girl or a girl?" They took 2 steps together and were talking. Fletcher suddenly thought of something and said quickly, "Sigsby, has our door been locked?" Little Sigsby sighed like an adult. Sure enough, this image was that of a sister. She said, "We have all returned the room. Whether it is locked or not has nothing to do with us." What image should Fletcher have? The sister who worries about her sister is the image of Fletcher. Thatcher, don't run around and be careful of the car. Sullivan, are you hungry? Do you want breakfast? Thatcher, even if you don't run away, you can't slap someone else's car with your hands. Do you know any children? Have you said goodbye to them? Fletcher was walking and talking, and his naughty sister made it difficult to feel at ease for a moment. Walking on the road, her face full of excitement, Thatcher jumped up with her little backpack on her back and shouted, "Let's go, let's go." Sullivan, who wore pink twin tails, looked at Thatcher, who was excited and was also affected, but her voice was much softer. "Let's go." At this time, Sigsby was the only one with a helpless expression, looking at his 2 younger sisters shouting slogans. They walked like this for a while, and a man was waiting for them on the street with breakfast. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 164. It's winter, and few people are willing to go out unless necessary. At this time, we are in a beautiful small courtyard in the north of Sichuanxiu City. Because the New Year's Day holiday has passed, few people can be seen walking around in the huge courtyard. However, if someone were to go home and pass by the yard, they would probably be able to see a fire being lit under the largest maple tree in the yard. Occasionally, fires would be lit in the yard to burn the fallen leaves, which was not unusual. However, the fire lit at this time was not to burn fallen leaves, but to burn a book. When you pass by the fire, you can first see a handsome woman with short silver gray hair and a straight face. At this time, she is holding her hands on her chest and looking at the fire and a girl squatting on the ground. The girl squatting on the ground had long pink hair and a cute face. A miserable smile appeared on her face, and just one look at her could make people feel a desire to protect her. It's just that the pink-haired girl is not a thin little girl. People who have lived in this yard for a long time can also recognize that the 2 people next to the fire have a sisterly relationship. As a sister, she possesses incredible strength, which is reflected in the steel guardrail that was kicked off in the yard. The girl with a miserable expression was Tirpitz, also known as Bazai. At this time, she looked at the flames rolling up in front of her. Liangju took a book or notebook from his side with a colorful cover that could make a passing child cover his or her eyes and throw it into the fire. The cover of the book quickly rolled up due to the flames, then black spots appeared, and then burned quickly. Bazai looked at the book that was engulfed in flames and said with pity, "Hood was burned." The notebook was quickly burned in the fire, and then under the strict supervision of her sister, Bazai threw another notebook into the fire. That one was a rare collection for her. The Prince of Wales was burned. "Prince Eugen, you died miserably. Because I am leaving Chuangziu, I will probably never come back again, and the house will be returned. Bedding and furniture can be left behind, and it doesn't matter whether they are taken away by the landlord or left to give to the next tenant. But there is no way to take away the notebooks piled up in the room, and they cannot be left for others to see. Throwing them away is not a good way to deal with them, so these notebooks have to face the fate of being burned. Baizai held a book and slowly put it into the fire with heartache. She rolled up her sleeves, and the flames rolled up could not burn her clothes. My sister was also burned. That was Bismarck's notebook. Then Baizai put his hands together and bowed, praying, "May there be no flames in heaven and everyone can live happily." Bismarck, who was standing nearby with bared teeth, finally couldn't stand it anymore when she saw her sister's performance. She immediately picked up a book from the ground, rolled it up, and then raised her hand high and smashed it on Baizai's head. Bismarck smashed them all over the place, and said while smashing them, "I want your hood to be burned, I want you to be the Prince of Wales to be burned, I want you to be Prince Eugen to be burned, I want you to wish that there would be no flames in heaven, or, may heaven not hit anyone." Not long after, Bismarck finally stopped. She stood aside and threw the notebook she had just used to hit someone into the flames. Then she showed a helpless expression. Her sister was really helpless. Bismarck stopped, but Baizai held a book in front of his face and said weakly, "It's almost burned. Do you want to burn this last one? It's the story of my sister and the Admiral. I drew it, yes, the plot is very touching." Bismarck glanced at the North House indifferently and said, "I'm too lazy to pay attention to you. I'm going to see Prince Eugen." On the other side, in the entrance hall of the room, Leipzig smashed his Lucky Cat piggy bank. The Lucky Cat made of plaster was lifted high and then smashed to the ground. The Lucky Cat immediately shattered on the ground. At the same time, Leipzig looked at the coins scattered on the ground and suddenly felt like crying without tears. There is actually no money in the Lucky Cat, but every time you enter, no matter how much, you always have to drop a coin. It has become a habit over time. But now that I have to leave, I still need to carry a Lucky Cat piggy bank with me. If you are not a child, you can only smash the piggy bank and take it out. The coins were scattered on the ground, and Leipzig squatted on the ground to pick them up one by one. 1. 2. Suddenly the light outside the door was blocked, and a voice came over, "Leipzig, have you packed everything?" Leipzig raised her head, and she saw Bismarck pushing open the door and saying, "Yeah, pack it up, when are we leaving?" "Wait a moment." In the living room, Prince Eugen had packed up everything, whether it was his own things, Bismarck's things, or things belonging to the North House. Prince Eugen said, "This long trip is over. How many places have we been to? But now we finally have a garrison. Isn't this the ending you expected, Sister Bismarck? The small house has been found, and the Admiral has also been found. The new garrison has now been established. By then, Sister Bismarck can rest temporarily." Bismarck said, "There are still many things to do next. Although you and I, Leipzig, Baizai, and Zayazai are all here, there are still so many people who are not here. The 3 Deutsche-class sisters, Scharnhorst, Hipper Navy, the Admiral and Blücher, the 3 Königsberg-class sisters, the destroyers, and 3 small submarines. Many, many people, and it's not over yet." Prince Eugen looked at Bismarck and thought to himself, although he always has a serious face, he can get a response to any request he has as long as he needs it. Although the metaphor is a bit bad, Sister Bismarck is probably like a human father. Although she will not take care of you and comfort you with gentle words, she will definitely stand behind you and help you when you need it. I will definitely stand in front of you when you need it and protect you from wind and rain. It is precisely because of this that Sister Bismarck has such charm. As the garrison girl who belongs to Germany, she is the absolute core existence. In comparison, although Baizai is equally powerful, he is more like a funny mascot. Prince Eugen raised his hand and said, "I will always be by Sister Bismarck's side." I am your shield. Not long after, Bismarck, dressed in black, walked out of the yard. The big dog that liked to roar when it saw people in the yard was glanced at by Bismarck and huddled in the corner. At this time, Bismarck was carrying 2 suitcases. She didn't bring much, just a change of clothes and photos full of memories. Bismarck walked in front, followed by Prince Eugen. Leipzig was carrying a backpack and touching his pockets over and over again. Money had been stolen before, so he still had lingering fears. Then she thought about the small items she had left under the bed that were still unsold despite the big sale, and felt heartbroken. Bazi was alone holding a backpack full of notebooks. Although most of them were burned, a few survived by chance. As for the clothes, she didn't pack them anyway, and she didn't know if Prince Eugen had packed them. If not, she could just wear her sister's clothes then. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai-De Rong Yan. Chapter 165. Heading to the town hall, the college has a special boat to pick you up, which is a yacht. The yacht is not big, so a captain, an engine, and a sailor can probably handle it. Among the group of passengers at this time, except for Sugu, who was just an ordinary person with some water skills, the others were all ship girls, so even if the yacht sank, it would not be a big deal. If there is any threat, it is probably the deep-sea ship girl. Just because of the existence of 3 super powerful main ship girls, Lexington, Saratoga, and Akagi, the deep-sea ship girls would probably be sunk if they couldn't appear in the field of view. The whole family was on the yacht, and they released the carrier-based aircraft early. The journey to the Tutelary mansion is destined to go smoothly. Sitting inside the yacht, everyone put down their luggage. Sugu saw Akagi in the cabin. Akagi's beautiful urban female appearance was surprising. He stretched out his hand towards her, wanting to help her put away her luggage. Putting his luggage into Sugu's hands, Akagi said, "Admiral, you look like a gentleman like this." Well enough. After putting away his luggage and walking with Akagi, Sugu looked at Akagi's awkward walking posture and said, "What's wrong with you? I'm not used to wearing high heels. Didn't you always wear clogs before? That's different." Returning to his seat, Akagi suddenly said, "Zeppelin is not around now, and neither is Kaga." Sensing that Sheik Hung wanted to say something, Sugu said, "It doesn't matter, please feel free to leave everything to me." In the cabin, York City sat next to the window and said, "Admiral, as agreed, my room will have a bathroom and a dressing room. I will have a separate room for myself." "Yes, yes, yes. When I first drew the drawings, I designed it exactly according to the layout I knew, taking everyone's comfort and convenience into consideration as much as possible." Although York City's original request was to install a bathtub in the room, that proposal was rejected early on. Of course, the bathtub cannot be installed because there is a bathroom. York City was a little pushy, and she added, "I also want a large balcony so that I can practice operating carrier-based aircraft while standing on the balcony. Your request is a bit excessive. It was originally a renovated townhouse. No one has a balcony, including me. If you want to fly a carrier-based aircraft, go outside, or go to the roof." Although I had considered rebuilding on the original abandoned Tutelary mansion before, in order to be able to live in the Tutelary mansion before New Year's Eve, and the original Tutelary mansion could not be rebuilt in a short period of time, I could only build it on someone else's original intact Tutelary mansion. Make some modifications and treat it as your own garrison. However, this garrison may not be a lifelong garrison, and you can return to the original garrison for reconstruction in the future. "Okay, that's it." York City's voice seemed to be a helpless compromise, because the more familiar she became with Sugu, the more rude she became. At the corridor of the yacht, Sugu let Firefly lie on the railing of the corridor. Firefly looked at the waves broken by the yacht and said, "Can I still sleep with the Admiral then?" "Of course. We can go find the prince's sister then, right?" Of course. I like you, Admiral. Sugu smiled, what a cute little girl, so he stretched out a hand and put it on Firefly's head and rubbed it. Firefly hugged his head and said, "Don't touch my head." As promised, swings, rocking tigers, slides, and seesaws, none of these things can be missing. And you also said you would buy me a doll. You are an adult and you can't break your promise. Don't worry. We have a well-prepared construction team, which is a team that specializes in building tutelary forts. Generally speaking, every tutelary fort has a destroyer, so most of the tutelary forts will build a playground. The playground is already very convenient. Moreover, dolls are just dolls. When did your admiral ever break his promise? What you said is really strange. Xiaozai tilted her head, holding her doll sister Miao, looking at Sugu with an expression of suspicion and distrust. She was an extremely cute little girl. She raised her head slightly, puffed her face, and wrinkled her nose. Sugu hugged Xiaozai and rubbed his face. It was so cute. Xiaozai shouted, "Don't rub my face. It's a great experience for adults, but it may not be a great experience for children." Then at this point Sugu just wanted to say how much fun it was to bully little girls. Saratoga blinked at him, and Sugu immediately thought of what happened that night, what the two said before meeting Leipzig on the bridge. It's just that no matter how beautiful the girl is, it's unethical and cheating? Forget it. At this time Saratoga said, "Brother-in-law, what kind of things do you like? My sister is in the office, and we are hiding in the cloakroom. Or, while my sister is working as a secretary to report things to you, I'll hide under your desk." She showed a charming expression and said, "Otherwise, we can hide in sister's bed to do something while she is away. When sister comes back, we can hide together under sister's bed." Sugu no longer wanted to complain, so he said, "Reject." Separating from Saratoga, Sugu walked around when suddenly a figure ran past him. Then a backpack was suddenly thrust into his arms. It was Bazai. Bazai showed an expression full of trust, "Admiral, your future happiness lies in your hands." Then she smiled and ran away quickly. Sugu held the backpack that Bazai put into his hands. Feeling the weight of the backpack and Bazai's usual integrity, he could guess what was inside without having to think about it. Bazai ran away, and Sugu put his backpack at his feet. He lay on the railing and continued to look at the sea in the distance. 10 seconds later, Bismarck appeared in the corridor looking left and right, and then Bismarck walked up. "Has the Admiral seen Bazai? Go forward. Turn left at the first intersection. You're not on the deck. You probably ran away to the second floor. Bazai, you are really disobedient." Although the North House was sold, the most important thing for the girl was kept. Sugu shrugged and thought to himself that he was so smart. He gained Bismarck's trust by betraying Bazai and helped Bazai save the most important thing. Moreover, I also want to take a look at Bazai's collection. Just like that, Sugu picked up his backpack and was about to turn around and leave, and then he saw Prince Eugen. "San Juan, why do you look so uneasy? When I was escorting the fleet, I had seen all kinds of strong winds and waves. When those big waves came up, I would get soaked all over my body. Those large passenger ships and cargo ships looked like they were about to capsize under the strong winds and waves. Now that I think about it, the picture makes me feel a little uneasy. Do you think this yacht can withstand such strong winds and waves? I guess not. When we get to the town hall, the Admiral will be ready to pay me my salary. By then, you won't be able to default on your salary. Leipzig, let's be honest. When have I ever defaulted on salary? I will definitely pay you. Then exchange them for gold coins for me. As promised, there will be 1,000. I will put them all in my treasure chest. 1,000? Why did the money increase again? And, put it in a treasure chest? Are you a money-grubbing dragon? On the deck of the yacht, Lexington leaned on the railing of the deck. Seagulls flew over the yacht, and there were several dolphins following the yacht in the sea not far away. Lexington said, I remember that when we first arrived at the garrison, there were only a few people, and the most powerful one was Firefly. At that time, we could barely form a formation. I remember when I first arrived at the guard's house, it was my first time to participate in a battle. You don't understand and I don't understand either. I remember that a large amount of aluminum is consumed in an attack. Originally, there wasn't much aluminum, but every time save and save. It was only later that I gradually learned that when the enemy has light carriers and aircraft carriers, we must learn to control the air. If we want to control the air, we must carry fighter jets. I remember one day you excitedly said that it is optimal for an aircraft carrier to fight with 2 bombs and 2 configuration. Hearing Lexington say this, Sugu remembered his experience in the first game. When he first got Lexington, he didn't know how to use it. At that time, he had no interest in checking the guide. Lexington became a big aluminum eater. Later, I checked the guide and found out how to match the Lexington with carrier-based aircraft. Then more and more people joined the garrison, the Colorado, the Quincy, and then the Lion and the Raider. The Raider, she was just a light mother at that time. Because more and more people joined, the plan has always been smooth, and the first time I encountered a problem was probably when I was conquering the deep-sea Fuzu base. Later Helena also came to the garrison, and took Helena back and forth to attack and return to Hong Kong. I don't remember how much time it took. You always said that as long as Helena grows up, everything will be easier. I don't even know where your confidence comes from. But you are right, when Helena grew up, we successfully defeated the enemy. Deep-sea Fuzu base? Sugu thought for a while, and then realized that that was the first problem that newcomers in the game had to face. Originally, there was no way to reach the finish line smoothly. After Helena was transformed and Helena's skills were improved, it was ensured that the fleet had enough to track down enemies so that the journey could go smoothly. Reciting the things in his memory little by little, Lexington straightened his long flaxen hair that was blown by the sea breeze. The sea breeze is strong. Yes. I remembered a story you told before. Let's try it. Consultant Sue asked, what story? At the same time, Saratoga, who was sitting in the cabin of the yacht, could not see her brother-in-law and sister. She looked everywhere. Finally, when she was near the yacht deck, the girl heard the voice of her sister Lexington. I'm flying dash. Then Saratoga heard her brother-in-law's voice again. I am the king of the world. Saratoga tilted her head cutely, thinking, what nonsense. That's about it. The outline of some building gradually appeared in the field of vision. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 166. When Sugu welcomed his own townhouse, he felt that his efforts had finally paid off. On a small island far away from their garrison, there are people who are committed to eradicating all troubles and have been working hard towards this goal. At this time, there is a church on the island. Although it is called a church and the exterior decoration looks like a church, it is actually an informal church. To be more precise, it is more appropriately called a psychological counseling room dedicated to admirals and ship girls. In order to eliminate the trouble, the church nun, Exeter with long pink hair, is listening to all kinds of complaints. After thinking about it, she began to enlighten those ship girls who had complaints, doubts, or guilt. This is a normal situation. There is no need to feel guilty. Even deep-sea ship girls will run away when they feel in danger. The ship's equipment limits everyone's speed. If the speed cannot catch up, there is nothing you can do. There is no need to feel guilt. This answer is given to a deep-sea ship girl who always ran away and failed to achieve any results. Injuries are inevitable. Huh. You said you are always injured alone, and you have consumed all the steel in the town hall? The admiral always said that you cheated on people with bad intentions and fell down. Well, you probably haven't seen it. 6 battleships that were originally preparing for a drill were sent out to attack under wrong orders, and then they encountered a deep-sea submarine. They entered into a night battle like this, and in the end they were all defeated. The resource consumption was enough make people cry. In comparison, the things you said, your steel consumption, are actually trivial matters. I know a fantasy. She obviously has fast speed and high dodge, but she will fall and get injured every time she attacks, no matter whether the enemy is strong or weak. And she still smiles every time she falls. That is malicious deception. This answer is given to a ship girl who is always injured during attacks. Although there are frequent sorties, no new ship girls are brought back once. Actually, do you know? If you bring back ship girls every time you sortie, the garrison will soon be overloaded due to the large number of people. So many duplicates. What should I do with the ship girl? Of course, if I can't bring the ship girl back after so many sorties, it's just a matter of luck, there's no need to feel guilty. This is for a ship girl who was born in an African garrison. Not long after, it was already approaching the afternoon, and today I had enlightened 3 more ship girls. Thinking of this, Exeter felt a little relieved. Then walking in the corridor of the church, she met her junior and asked, "What should we have for dinner?" "Of course it's big fish and big meat. Senior Leah enjoys everything." In a church that is supposed to be austere, people are eating and drinking every day. I really don't know what to say. It's quite nice. A place like this, by the way, speaking of which, I received a letter from you today. I am often busy, so my letters are collected on my behalf. What about your own letters? Was that sent by my sister York, who didn't even come back for the new year? At this time, she took her letter from her junior and looked at the address to which it was mailed. It seemed that it was sent by her own admiral. Did that admiral finally think of her? I originally wanted to take it apart directly, but suddenly felt that something was inappropriate for this occasion. I go first. Saying this, Exeter, wearing a black nun's outfit, walked to the innermost room of the church. Although from the outside, this is a church, and logically speaking, a church is never a place for enjoyment, but in fact, this is not a serious church in the first place. At this time, we were in a room where outsiders were not allowed to enter. It was beautifully decorated, with rocking chairs and soft sofas, and carpets on the floor. It would not be cold even if you walked barefoot on the floor in the middle of winter. Exeter walked into the room and moved the rocking chair to the fireplace, which was lit with warmth. She curled up on the chair like a cat, and then tore the letter open. The handwriting on the letterhead was a bit unfamiliar to her. She read the letter bit by bit, and for a long time she summarized the content of the letter. It was a letter inviting herself to Sichuan show. But at this time, Exeter could only smile bitterly while holding the letter. Many days had passed since the letter was sent before the new year, and the new year had already passed by the time he got the letter. Reunion. The party was over before it even started. What a damn postman. I just received the letter now. I had originally heard that I would get the Toot-Larry residence after the new year, but by now I think everyone has already arrived at the Toot-Larry residence. Exeter turned the letter over. At the back was the address of the new townhouse. She held up the letter and thought to herself, didn't the admiral even think of visiting her when he got the garrison? Of course, she also knew that it was just a delusion of her own. With so many people together, it was impossible for her to go all the way here just because she was alone. Being able to send a letter was enough. Exeter was inexplicably a little disappointed and didn't go with him. Everyone must have arrived at the townhouse now and even had their own rooms. At this time, she held her pink hair in front of her nose and sniffed it gently. The hair only smelled of shampoo. She did something inexplicably, she leaned on the rocking chair without saying a word, and now only the rocking chair was left shaking. At this point, she didn't know whether to wait for her sister, the York, to come over, or go there by herself. After all, they already had a garrison, so what would it be like to stay here? At first, I said that I would wait for my sister to come and then go there together. I originally thought that my sister would be back during the new year, but there seemed to be no news. What on earth is your sister doing? What is the Admiral doing now? What should the new town hall look like? I wonder if my sister's rooms are prepared? Thinking like this, the door to the room was suddenly pushed open, and then Exeter saw his senior Leah walking in. She seemed to be laughing at this time, and slapped the wall of the room while laughing. Then Leah discovered Exeter and said, "Ha, Exeter, I heard you are here, you are really here, you don't usually come here. Tell you a funny thing." "I don't want to hear it." Exeter said this. His senior had a very low laugh point and would laugh for a long time even at some cold jokes. "I guess the funny things are just boring things, and now that I feel a little depressed, I won't laugh at the funny things." Leah didn't care about rejection at all. She said to herself, "I met a little girl today." Saying this, and recalling the scene she saw originally, she almost wanted to lie on the ground and beat the ground. Some people always like to say some special sentences, like "today's wind is very noisy." Some people always think that the world is full of incredible things, and even have places like the other world. Some people fantasize about themselves you have superpowers, or you imagine that there is something sealed in your body. In short, we call such people people with Chuyunibu, and today I met a particularly interesting little girl, Chuyunibu. Leia imitated the appearance of the person she saw. She covered her eyes and waved one hand, looking evil. "Ah, don't hold me. I can no longer suppress my sealed left eye. The power is about to burst out now. This island will be destroyed by my power. Let me return to the sea quickly." Haha, it made me laugh so hard. You have never seen that scene before. Two of them came over. Both of them were blonde. I don't know if they were sisters or something. In short, the little girl had short blonde hair and was dressed like she is a goth Lolita, and she also wears an eye patch to cover her left eye. At first, she thought she had an eye problem and was being discriminated against, so she was brought here to enlighten her. But then, the adult woman with beautiful long blonde hair who came with her saw that she was still uncooperative. She pointed at her blindfold and said what I just said. Then the adult woman put her the blindfold came off and I almost got spanked. The scene was so embarrassing and so funny. Haha. I don't know how Chuyunibu can feel pressure and guilt. They are here now. Anyway, I can't. As soon as I heard her speak, I felt like I was going to laugh. Wait, it's Exeter. You can go over and enlighten the little girl. Once you have enlightened her, bring it to me to play with. Exeter glanced at his senior and brought the little girl to you to play with? What kind of pervert are you? What a terrible senior. Looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 167. A little girl in a gothic Lolita outfit stood in a dark room. Originally, the dark atmosphere was intended to make people open their hearts better, but now it had the opposite effect when facing a little girl who was afraid of the dark. It was just that the girl who was in the second grade of middle school wanted more attention, and then she thought of a pair of eyes staring at her in the dark room. The little girl immediately puffed up her chest proudly, but her trembling body made it difficult for others to see her determination. Haha, I don't need to enlighten you at all, I am the most noble lady. Then she covered her eye patch with her palm and continued, for Lord Amethyst, who sealed the power enough to destroy the world into his left eye, I have nothing to feel guilty about. I am noble and great. Hearing these secondary words on the other side, Exeter thought to himself, no wonder his senior Leah smiled like that. At this time, she responded, with helplessness in her voice. Children in middle school should be spanked. Exeter's helpless voice still had some effect, and then there was the sound of the little girl slapping the wall, with some anxiety in her voice. I am noble and great, you have to believe in me, you have to believe in me. Is there something you want to tell me? He asked in a standardized tone. Exeter didn't really know how to talk to the little girl. The little girl curled her lips again and said with a sneer, "Humph, how can a humble person like you deserve to listen to me?" For a long time, no sound came. When the little girl felt worried, the helpless voice appeared again. Humble people pray to you and listen to your teachings in order to make people open up. Exeter could only say this. Of course, it was necessary to talk to the other party's adults afterwards. Since you ask so humbly, it doesn't matter if I tell you. So can you tell me your story? Since you ask the question sincerely, I will tell you with great mercy. That's it, the little girl recounted her experience. For example, he was sent to the battlefield by his own admiral as a human shield specifically to taunt the deep-sea ship girls. Although using a destroyer as a human shield is a bit subtle anyway. Another example is that when he went on an attack in the past, the admiral would be happy whenever he was attacked. Although being attacked does protect others, there is no need to be happy. The little girl talked little by little, and then she talked about the disappearance of her admiral, and about leaving with her prince sister. Later, I went on an expedition with my friend Firefly. By the end of the expedition, I couldn't find her. The little girl in the second grade was filled with worry and fear in her voice. It was no longer the same tone that she used to say I am noble and great. Exeter asked, do you think you did something wrong? As a noble lady, how could I do something wrong? Well, in the end, I returned to the governor's mansion alone, and the prince sister didn't scold me. I should be happy that I didn't curse, but I suddenly felt so uncomfortable when I looked at Sister Prince's eyes. It's only right to scold me. It was me who lost the fireflies. I don't know where the fireflies went. I haven't seen her for a long time, and if it sinks, well, it will be all my fault. Ever since the firefly couldn't be found, the prince sister always locked herself in the room. She said it was her responsibility that the firefly disappeared, and she said she was sorry for the admiral. It is obviously not her responsibility, that should be my responsibility. Well, it's my responsibility. Sister Prince rarely talks to us now. When I see her go out occasionally, she always has a gloomy face. Whether she is dealing with enemies or ordinary people, everyone says she is too cruel. I'm a little scared. I think Sister Prince has become very strange now. Everyone whispers that Sister Prince will fall into the deep sea. I'm so scared. It's all because of me. I asked them adults, and they all said not to care. How could they care? They are not children. Even children know it. It is such an important thing. If I had not lost the firefly would not have disappeared, and the prince sister would not have become like this. Although the admiral is still missing, everyone can still live a good life. It's so annoying. It's so annoying. Although no one scolded me, it's so annoying. The little girl squatted on the ground holding her head, with a hint of crying in her voice. Although he guessed the other party's identity from the beginning, it was only now that Exeter called out, "Amethyst." The little girl showed a puzzled expression and asked, "How do you know I am Amethyst?" "We know each other." Amethyst knocked on the wall. The sound was a bit unfamiliar to her. Anyway, she couldn't remember who it was. At this time, she said, "Can you help Sister Prince?" "In fact, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care." "Okay, mainly the Prince sister. When we came here, she didn't come even if we asked her to come." I don't have much to do, but I know someone who can. Besides, the firefly you mentioned did not sink. Instead, it should be said that she is living a good life now. The firefly is still alive. How did you know? And, who can help the prince's sister? That's a guy named Sugu. And me, you should know me, I'm Exeter. The blonde woman was sitting on a bench inside the church. As Amethyst Quartz came over, she stood up and said, Amethyst Quartz, how are you feeling now? Are you feeling better? There is so much information that I still can't sort it out. Amethyst Quartz looked confused and said, Sister Counterattack, the confession room you are talking about is still a confession room anyway. I don't know what room it is in. What room is there? It's Exeter. At this time, her blonde hair is hanging loose and not tied up like before. Although she is not as good as her sister, she is still able to do everything in her work. She is not suitable as a leader or flagship, but she is indeed a near all-around deputy at work. The adult woman who came with Amethyst to fight back showed a puzzled expression and was a little dazed. Countered, Exeter? Our Exeter? She's here. Originally, I brought Amethyst Quartz here just to let others enlighten Amethyst Quartz's inner knot. Although the little girl couldn't tell it from the outside, she knew it. Ever since he went on an expedition with fireflies and returned to the townhouse alone, he could always hear talk in his sleep every night when he was making another quilt for him. It's none of my business. Firefly, I don't want to either. Where have you been? Come back quickly. I don't want to be like this anymore. I can always hear this kind of sleep talk every night. Although she still looks like the little girl who is in middle school, she still feels entangled and guilty in her heart. So I brought the other person here. Amethyst didn't know what was going on in her mind when she fought back. She grabbed her little skirt with both hands. What Exeter said actually seemed a bit incredible to her. She whispered, Exeter, Sister Exeter said she met the Admiral. Counterattack was originally thinking, why does Exeter appear here? I remember that the Prince of Wales had been here before, but he never said Exeter was here. The next second, she suddenly thought of the words mentioned in Amethyst's mouth, Admiral. Admiral. Admiral of Exeter? Damn it, she got a new admiral so quickly. Or is it our admiral? How is that possible? Random thoughts and counterattacks, she is not a decisive person to begin with. Suddenly a hand was placed on her shoulder. She subconsciously slapped the arm on her shoulder away and frowned, wondering who could be so ignorant. She turned around and saw a pink-haired woman wearing a black nun's outfit and a black headscarf. Such an important thing happened on the Repulse. Is the Prince of Wales about to fall into the deep sea? A counterattack opened his mouth with a puzzled look on his face. Is the Prince of Wales going to fall into the deep sea? Why don't you know? Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 168. Is the Prince of Wales going to fall into the deep sea? Exeter's question immediately made counterattack confused, and he even forgot to ask the Admiral for a while. Compared to the Admiral who has been missing for such a long time, the Prince of Wales is someone who is really around, visible and tangible. It would be terrible if something happened to fall into the deep sea. Not to mention anything else, once the Prince of Wales falls into the deep sea, he will probably become a character like the deep sea flagship and be the nightmare of the whole world. At the same time, Exeter was also a little confused. After all, the counterattack expression fully showed that she did not know about the Prince of Wales. Is it not? Amethyst made it clear that the Prince of Wales took all the blame on himself and fell into self-blame for this. If this kind of self-blame is not enlightened, it is often easy for a ship girl to fall into the deep sea. The Prince of Wales used to be a big brother-like presence in the British ship in the garrison. For this reason, when he heard Amethyst's words, he hurried out. Then Exeter said what he heard from Amethyst. Counterattack turned his head and glanced at Amethyst, thought for a moment, and gave his answer. No one knows why a ship girl will become a deep-sea ship girl, but when a ship girl starts to be confused, and disgusted, it is a precursor to becoming a deep-sea ship girl. The performance of the Prince of Wales during this period, in they seem to be precursors to becoming deep-sea ship girls, it's actually not that exaggerated. The Prince of Wales has always been very strong-willed. She did feel a little guilty because of the Firefly incident. Firefly's disappearance was a bit of a blow to her. But to be honest, she didn't even collapse when the Admiral disappeared, although it hurt to say that. People's hearts, but Firefly's status is really not as good as that of the Admiral. The Prince of Wales is indeed worried about Firefly, but not to the point where he is about to fall into the deep sea. If a companion is going to sink into the deep sea, then how many ship girls in the world are going to fall into the deep sea? But in fact, the ship girls who fall into the deep sea are only a minority among the few. As you know, the Prince of Wales is not very good at taking care of children. What about me? I have many things going on every day. The children are thinking about something and will not tell us. I am here just because I get up at night, to see if they were well covered with quilts. I heard Amethyst talking in her sleep. Although I enlightened her, it was not of much use, so I thought of this. They were scared, and the Prince of Wales didn't understand. From an adult's perspective, the child's uneasiness probably reflected confusion about the future, so they didn't care. There were so many things going on, how could there be time to care about the child's uneasiness? Just provide them with a good life. I have also been busy with various things. There are a lot of things in the management of the townhouse. The Prince of Wales is also always busy. Sometimes he locks himself in the room. This is not because of guilt, it is indeed something. We won't talk to them about these things, we don't care, but they have become sensitive. They probably heard unreliable rumors somewhere, talked about it, and then frightened themselves before they came to this conclusion. They are just imagining. After some discussion, they came to the conclusion that this was probably a strange delusion of the little girl. The less aware of the situation, the worse the delusion became, and now it has become that the Prince of Wales is about to fall into the deep sea. Counterattack hugged Amethyst, rubbed Amethyst's head, and said, "Speaking of which, I really lack some care for them." Amethyst was hugged, and now she understood that she was just worried. At this time, she didn't say anything like oh, I knew that was the case. She just felt the rare warm embrace of her sister who was fighting back. Then he counterattacked and said, "Speaking of which, what is the Admiral that Amethyst is talking about?" Exeter nodded and said, "I did meet the Admiral." "Ah, Admiral, did you really meet the Admiral? Our Admiral? How did you meet the Admiral?" Since the Prince of Wales had nothing to do, Exeter wasn't too worried. At this time, people were coming and going in the church. Exeter walked to the garden outside the church with her counterattack. As she walked, she said, "It was here that I met the Admiral, it was the Admiral who found the fireflies. In the orphanage, and then." Just like that, Exeter told what he knew. After telling what she knew, Exeter thought of York City and said, "Speaking of which, the Admiral has a new girl now." "New girl? Who is that?" "Yorktown, USS Yorktown. Isn't he anxious to find everyone?" "I don't know if he is anxious or not." He countered, "His life is quite interesting. If the Prince of Wales knew about it now, something bad would probably happen." Purple Quartz poked her head out and said, "Will Sister Prince hang the Admiral up and beat him?" Wondering why Amethyst asked such a question, she retorted, "No. Will Sister Prince lock up the Admiral like a puppy? If so, can I pet his head? I won't be locked up like a puppy. Firefly is actually with the Admiral. Fortunately, I have been worried about her. Master Amethyst will beat her up when the time comes." Later, Amethyst Quartz pinched her face in a counterattack. It was the best thing that everyone was fine, and she even hit people. Of course, she also knew that it was Amethyst Quartz's joke. On the bench beside the lawn outside the church, the three people sat side by side. Exeter took out the letter he had received. Then she looked back, shook the letter in her hand, and said, "They actually have a garrison, and Lexington and Saratoga, Bismarck and Tirpitz, they are all here. When things have developed to this point, there is nothing to worry about. Instead, it should be said to be major good news." But compared to Exeter, she was accustomed to thinking about the Prince of Wales when counter-attacking. At this time, she was worried and said, "Oh, they got there first, it seems that we can't go on like this. We will lose if we go on like this, the pride of the British Empire. Moreover, if this continues, the Prince of Wales will also lose." Exeter didn't understand. She asked, "What are you talking about? Why are we going to lose? In the past, the Toot-Larry Mansion was our world, but now there is no one of us except fireflies in the Toot-Larry Mansion. If this continues, how far will our status fall? Jealous? Don't worry about that kind of thing. On the contrary, you should care." Exeter was a little angry when he heard the explanation. That's it. How long had it been before he was actually considering such an issue? "We can't go on like this. We have to fight for a turnaround. Please tell us about the Admiral's character. We have to make a plan for a turnaround." Counterattack did not follow her sister's side. She always followed the Prince of Wales. Compared to her chic sister, the Prince of Wales was a more respectable senior. If you want to catch up with your sister, if you want to share the pressure for the Prince of Wales, there are always too many things to consider in counterattack. Exeter couldn't resist the fight, thought for a while and said, "Obsessive-compulsive disorder must be one of them. This doesn't seem to have anything to do with us. Does it count for being indecisive? There are obviously so many rings that this one is reluctant to give and the other one is reluctant to give. It has nothing to do with us." Exeter found it a little difficult, and then she said, "Luxury must count. If you think about Helena's experience, that is the most typical thing." Counter nodded. At this time, Amethyst suddenly said, "I know what the Admiral likes." The counterattack was actually hopeless. "Then tell me." "I remember one time, not long before the Admiral disappeared, the Admiral found me, and besides me, there were others. The light cruiser Santiago, the one with green curly hair and a cat-like uniform. Sukba Thor is the supply ship. She never goes into action. She just walks around the port area every day with nothing to do. Destroyer Keeling is the one holding the torch like the Statue of Liberty. Wearing warm winter clothes, a set of winter clothes for the destroyer Tashkent. Plus the submarine Archerfish. That time the Admiral put us into a formation and asked us to attack together. Sister counterattack, you know it? It is a light cruiser, a destroyer, and a submarine. This combination is very incompatible, and the place where we attack is also a very dangerous sea area. Then we only experienced a few battles. The big break returned to Hong Kong. Their skirts were burned in the gunfire, and many people could only come back with their underwear exposed. When the Admiral saw us, he was not angry, but looked at it with gusto." Amethyst said this. If Sugu were here, he would definitely refute Amethyst's words. He said that he just saw a picture on the internet, and then suddenly discovered that these ship girls were very popular in their erotic paintings. So in an interesting mood, a fleet was formed to attack. Moreover, even this kind of thing was only done once. If it were a real thing, of course it would be a very abnormal behavior, but in a game, of course, you don't have to think about so many things, just do whatever it takes to get high. Of course, it is undeniable, especially the medium-sized vertical painting after the modification of the submarine Archerfish. The vertical painting is simply amazing. That time the Admiral even gave our formation a special name, the Ship Girl Beautiful Butt Group. It was so shameful, especially for Santiago. Her face was as red as an apple. "Admiral, you must like butts." On the other side, after hearing Amethyst's words, counterattack, and Exeter fell silent. After a long while, Exeter said, "Should we look for such an admiral again? Let's just give up." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 169. Did you know? There is a steel evil dragon sealed in my arm. When the evil dragon breaks the seal, I will become a deep-sea ship girl. Look at those deep-sea ship girls, they all carry beast-like ship outfit. Deep-sea destroyers are fish, deep-sea battleships are sea snakes, maybe. There are also some powerful deep-sea battleships with steel whales. What about me? If the seal on my arm is lifted, I will become a steel evil dragon. Deep-sea flagship. Leah said. Amethyst opened her mouth slightly, showing a very powerful expression. Here, eat a banana. There are also longans here. That's it, I'll tell you again, it was a long time ago. At that time, I had just woken up from the sea, and I was just a little ship girl. Leia was lying next to Amethyst, speaking seriously about the iron evil dragon sealed in her arm. Exeter felt very embarrassed when he was listening to it. Such a person who was talking happily to a middle school girl was actually his senior. After telling a lot of stories that she didn't even know what was going on, which frightened Amethyst into a daze, Leah said, "Let this kid sleep with me at night." Exeter was a little embarrassed and said, "It's not good." "What's wrong? There are no spare rooms here. You sleep with counterattack, and I'll sleep with her, the great Lord Amethyst." It was already afternoon when we counterattacked yesterday. Although I wanted to set off to find the Admiral immediately, after thinking about it I decided to forget it for now. There was no way to rush there at once, and it was not very good to travel at night. In this case, I decided to stay here for one night. No matter where you live, you should refute what should be refuted. Why are there no spare rooms? There are spare rooms everywhere, and it's not clear how Exeter, who has been here for so long, can't figure it out. It's just that Exeter's rebuttal hasn't been spoken yet. Instead, he simply said, "It doesn't matter if you sleep with Amethyst, but do you know where this place is?" Counterattack showed Leah the letter from Exeter in his hand. After receiving the letter, Leah looked at the address, and then took a peek at Exeter and said, "I'm not too familiar with it. If that, I might remember it. She used to be a ship girl mercenary. Traveled all over the world, and finally decided to open a church here. The address is a trivial matter." Her senior was bargaining. How could Exeter not be clear? She sighed and said, "Don't ask. If you want to sleep with her, just ask her. Amethyst, noble and great queen, the best princess in the world, perfect lady, your servant invites you." Amethyst Quartz was overwhelmed by the praise and praise. The little girl put her hands on her waist and said, "In this case, I will do whatever it takes. Oh, then I also remembered where it is. I'm attaching a map for you." What an over-the-top performance. In this way, Leah got her wish and counterattack, and Exeter also got the specific address they wanted. Not long after, walking in the corridor back to the room, Exeter said to the counterattack, "You don't want to stop me." She responded with a strange expression, "Why do you want to stop her? She has no ill intentions." The ship girl herself can easily read people's hearts, and she can see clearly whether there is any malicious intent at a glance. And Leia is a ship girl herself. If she had malicious intentions, then she should now be a deep-sea ship girl with black hair all over her body and a gloomy face. Even if there's no malice, it's not right. Amethyst might also like it. Exeter wanted to say something, but he couldn't make sense. He was a little discouraged, thinking that he seemed to be serious. Walking down the corridor to his room, Exeter slept with counterattack for the night. Although from an outsider's perspective, the underappreciated Exeter is actually not familiar with counterattacks. But for the ship girl, belonging to the same garrison is a very important connection in itself, and she is a trustworthy companion. Returning to the room, Exeter took off his black nun's outfit and put on white pajamas. At this time, I have to talk about her figure. She looks slimmer when she is dressed and her flesh is revealed when she is undressed. Of course, her heavy breasts are undoubtedly a plus. Looking at Exeter's figure, he sat on the edge of the bed and shook his legs, saying, "You can't tell." "I can't see anything." "Very interesting." "Oh, don't say such things," Exeter sighed. He originally thought that a perfect maid would be unsmiling, but he didn't expect that she also had a worldly outlook. "Then what should I say?" "Master, please let me fight back in order to undress and take off my belt." "It's not this, you should talk to the Admiral about this." "Admiral, I remember that I used to be called Master, but it is our responsibility to undress and take care of ourselves. However, this kind of thing should be left to the prestige sister. I am just a poor little maid without a ring." Exeter did not fight back against such a maid's concept, and she could not fight back after a few words. After a long time, she sat on the edge of the bed and said, "Well, to tell the truth, the Prince of Wales came to my place before." She said, "Well, is what Amethyst said true?" Of course she would not say what the Prince of Wales had told her, not even in counterattack, and not even the Admiral had said it at that time. "What's the matter? Tie up the Admiral like a dog." "Of course I won't really lock up the Admiral like a dog." "Then don't worry." "But, maybe, he might actually be locked up." "The Prince of Wales would not tell anyone else, not me, let alone those children, whatever he wanted to do." That's why Amethyst misunderstood. "Then when we go back, let's take Bismarck with us to protect the Admiral." "How can that be done? Aren't we eating the inside out?" "It won't hurt the Admiral anyway. As for the counterattack, as long as it doesn't hurt the Admiral, the Prince of Wales can do whatever he wants. Exeter has no choice but to let the Admiral wish for his own happiness. Go to sleep." The next day, Exeter climbed out of bed, rubbing his sleepy eyes, and touched his arms everywhere, only to find that the counterattack sleeping next to her was gone. She sat up from the bed and saw counterattack standing in front of the mirror in the room. At this time, counterattack stretched out his hand and quickly rolled up his long golden hair, and then wrapped it in cloth. Then she put on a headscarf, a white apron over her skirt, white gloves, black stockings, and round-toe shoes, and now she looked like she had been in a maid outfit. Yesterday, she looked like an ordinary person, so why did she suddenly change into a maid outfit? Exeter asked, "Why do you take your maid uniform with you when you go out?" He counterattacked and asked, "It would be strange not to wear a maid uniform. After all, we are going to find the Admiral today. No, we should put on the maid uniform and call the Master. We are going to find the Master today." Exeter couldn't complain, and said, "For a long time, just like your sister's reputation, she has become the Admiral's wedding ship, but she still considers herself a maid. She still calls the Admiral, Master, Master, obviously she is the mistress now bar." The counterattack was serious and said, "Sister is not a maid, sister is the head maid. Some things can be a lot different if just one word differs." Exeter was helpless. He couldn't understand these maids anyway. Did he believe in the maid cult? Soon they had breakfast, bread and milk, and then found Amethyst. The little girl had dark circles on her eyes. It seemed that she had been playing for a long time last night. "It won't take a few hours to get there." "Of course it's not a matter of a few hours." Counterattack stood on the sea, her sailing feet stepping on the sea and splashing waves. She said, "Then let's move towards the garrison at a speed of 32 knots. Anyway, the faster the better. Good. Probably not. Have you forgotten? Amethyst is a slow ship, with a speed of only 20 knots. The destroyer can only reach a speed of 20 knots. Amethyst raised her hands and danced in the air, saying, I am a noble lady. Walking slowly is what a lady should do. Only commoners can run around. Civilian. Sorry. Just like that, no matter what, the three people started heading towards the address on the letter. Looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai-De-Rong Yan. Chapter 170. When Exeter, counterattack, and Amethyst set off, Sugu also brought his ship girl to his own garrison. Although Sugu came here once at first, after expressing his thoughts to the construction team later, Sugu never came here again. At this time, he came here with a letter of appointment to hand over. In fact, there was nothing to hand over. The people in the construction team had almost left, and everything that needed to be dealt with had been dealt with. So far, he was just one person. Just waiting here is so unprofessional. Afterwards, when the people here and the person who sent him here left quickly on the yacht, Sugu began to formally look at this garrison that belonged to him. This Tutlari residence is still some distance away from the nearest small town, so it is not very convenient to get there. However, it also prevents boring people from going to the Tutlari mansion for sightseeing or other things. There is a very wide sea outside the Tutlari mansion, and there is a small yacht tied to the pier on the dock. This is the standard feature of the Tutlari mansion. Although the small yacht looks a little dilapidated, it can be used to supply supplies to the garrison. Along the long stairs of the pier, you can walk all the way up to the town hall, open the iron gate of the town hall and look around. First, you can see several high-rise buildings used as dormitories, but the first floors of these high-rise buildings have been converted into offices, canteens, or activity rooms. There are several tall magnolia trees and several ping-pong tables on the north side of the governor's mansion. There is a row of short tile-roofed houses next to it, which are used as warehouses. The wall beside the tile-roofed house is covered with vines. I don't know if they are roses or creepers. The entire town hall is rectangular, with almost all the houses built next to it, and in the middle are various golf courses and lawns. All in all, the entire town hall gave Sugu the feeling of an old government compound from the 1970s and 1980s. Sugu had been here before, and as a tour guide, he took everyone around briefly in various places. I looked around and found that there are basically no problems in the big aspects. Of course, some details still need to be dealt with. I looked around everywhere, but it didn't actually take too much time. It just seemed formulaic. Since it was my own garrison, of course it would be better to be more casual. Then Sugu announced that he was free to move around. York City first said, as promised by the Admiral, I'm going to choose my room. Go. Fletcher whispered to his sisters, and then one person stood up. Sullivan looked at Sugu, and she twisted her hands behind her back and said, Admiral, can we also choose a room? Of course. Choosing a room is of course the most important thing for everyone. It cannot be too high. If it is too high, it will be troublesome to climb the stairs. It's not good if you're too short. It's a southerly day. If you live too short, everything will get wet. That's a kind of torture. Is there a south wind here? I don't know. Anyway, just try to build a taller building. Then everyone ran away, and Advisor Sue asked, where is Bismarck, where do you live? Whatever. The word casual is probably the most difficult to deal with. Then, Admiral, please choose for me. Then take the rightmost one on the third floor. It has a vast view. Then Bazai said, my sister and I are together. Prince Eugen also said, I live next to Bismarck's sister. You guys are really not picky when it comes to choosing a room. Now Sugu thinks about himself. When he was a child, he changed rooms with his brother for 15 yuan. In the following 10 years, he regretted it every time he thought about it. Jia, don't you choose your own room. I'll wait until my brother-in-law chooses first. Sugu shrugged and said, I'll wait until you finish choosing. So, what about you, Lexington? Where do you live? Me, I live with the Admiral. Bismarck then looked at Lexington with an evil look in his eyes. Sugu said, now there is a question, who will be the secretaryship? Bismarck, what do you think? I'll forget it. Bismarck refused decisively. She was not good at handling trivial management matters, and Prince Eugen was even better than her. Although she is proud, she is also self-aware and does not like to express herself in a boring way. Then it's Lexington. You can be the secretaryship. Saratoga and Bazai were not on the candidate list at all. Just like that, Sugu still had a lot of things to do next, such as checking every place. Another example is taking stock of resources. The resources left by the previous admiral may not have been taken away. While walking around, Sugu and his little house were attracted by the blackboard wall on the side of the town's mansion. Although it was called a blackboard wall, it was obviously more appropriate to call it a wishing wall. The handwriting on the blackboard is quite strong, showing the deep knowledge of the owner of the handwriting. It's just that the words on it are a little subtle. The handwriting was written with chalk. It looked a little blurry at this time, but it could still be seen clearly. In 2013, a battleship 0/1 with fair skin, good looks, big breasts, and long legs was crossed out. In 2014, there was a beautiful battleship 0/1 with big breasts and long legs who was crossed out. In 2015, there was a battleship 0/1 with big breasts and long legs, which was crossed out. In 2016, there was a long-legged battleship 0/1, which was crossed out. In 2017, there was a battleship 0/1. Continuing to look down from the top, there is a lot of densely written words. Missouri 0/1, you are the only ship I want. Bismarck 0/1, you are the only ship I want. Tirpitz 0/1, you are the only ship I want. Enterprise 0/1, you are the only ship I want. Sugu looked from the top of the wishing wall to the bottom. There was no line that said 1/1, all of them were 0/1. There are no ships at all, so why are you talking about the only ship you want? As I kept looking at it, I saw that the bottom of the wishing wall was not a wish, but the handwriting below seemed brisk, as if the owner of the handwriting was in a good mood at that time. Since I joined the club called Would You Like Some Rabbit today, everyone in it is a talented person, and they speak well. I really like being in it. It is impossible to get out of the battleship, and you will never be able to get out of the battleship in this life. But the destroyers are awesome. Anyone who opposes the destroyer will have his dog's head smashed. Fubuki is super cute. Then there is a line of small words at the bottom of the blackboard. The handwriting has been changed, and I can see this word written on it. Has been taken away by the gendarmerie, a member of the gendarmerie is staying. At this time, Sugu was holding Xiaozai, and Xiaozai stretched out his hand to touch the words on the wishing wall. To be honest, Xiaozai may not recognize all of these words. Looking at the writing on the wishing wall, Sugu felt a little emotional. He could imagine the bitterness of the admiral who was guarding the mansion when he wrote these words. Sugu said, I think we have come to a great place. This is basically the territory of Africans. Sugu hugged Xiaozai and then kissed Xiaozai on the cheek. He thought to himself, it doesn't have to be a destroyer, even a battleship. The little house is super cute.